Hey YouTube, welcome back. We are like 10 hours away from losing access to the multiplayer server, and I've played my favorite Swarmblade build that I've ever played before. So before we lose access to this character, I want to share it with you and give you the idea and why we're playing it. So the broad strokes of this character, we're a primalist, we're a druid, and we are using a Swarmblade form. So we're always transformed into a bug. Sounds funny saying that. The most important thing for you to know about is that on the live servers on 085, the lightning proc of Tornado does not inherit more multipliers from the rest of the Tornado skill. So it's like a weird skill. If you hold down Alt, it says it doesn't inherit anything because it's boring. But in the future, in 0.9, here, it does inherit the more multipliers from the rest of your Tornado skill. So instead of having no more multis, it now has 100% more damage, 10% more damage, 88% more damage. And then if you'd like to, you can grab 5% more damage down here, and you can even grab 10% more damage down here. It doesn't convert to lightning, even though it has fire conversion for the Tornado itself. Quote unquote, it looks pretty if you'd like to do the Tornado stuff with fire. But the point is, all those more multipliers give your lightning extra damage, which is sweet. So this is a spell, adaptive damage, crit chance and crit multi, lightning shred, dual wield, lightning bug. And it's very, very fun. I don't think this is the best way to play a Swarmblade build if you're only looking for like damage. I think the normal like Tornado plus Storm Orbs, if you're playing the Frostbite, Swarmblade builds, those are insane. They are very, very high damage. This is a different way of playing it. To me, I like it more. It doesn't have as much damage, but it has quality of life because your Rage and your Leech are excellent. You have Rage gain on crit and you're critting constantly, so you're never falling out of out of your Swarmblade form. And your Leech, you have Leech gain on hits, Leech gain on crits, and you're critting constantly, and you have lots of pieces of your build that are hitting and critting, and capping your crits very easy. So that's why I like this build. It is awesome. Let's walk through the skills, the masteries, and the gear real quick so you can kind of get an idea of what we are looking at here. Shout out to Mythica, who is a member of Twitch chat who's been playing this both on live and on the multiplayer server. So they've shared their planner with me on live, so I'm going to be pointing to that in just a second here. Shout out to Aaron Action RPG, who's also been playing a version of this build. I think we cleaned it up a little bit, and I think we got more damage out of it. But I like that he's trying to popularize new ideas, things that are changing this way. And then shout out to Karakorum, who is also a member of Twitch chat, trying this out and brainstorming new ideas. I think Bina is also a Twitch streamer. He's been messing around with this, and I've been chatting him about the build. So like those are like the kinds of people that I think are also working at this build at the same time. And this build is awesome. So the skills, real quick, Tornado, we have a bunch of more damage multipliers. This does inherit more damage multipliers. The Storm Orbs are bugged right now. They say that they don't, but they do. But in the future, EHG is interested in making them work the same as the Tornado. So like, I think this is technically a bug, but we're using it. It's not a core feature of the build. It's just another thing that hits and deals a little bit of extra damage. On to Maelstrom. Maelstrom is basically just here for Frenzy and Haste because we can proc it off of using our dive, which is our little movement skill. We also get some extra lightning procs. In the future, EHG says they want to change this node, and they'd like to have it inherit more multipliers as well. So fingers crossed, maybe someday these lightning procs also scale with more damage multipliers like this one here, but currently they do not. So we're just using this as an extra proc. The important things about Maelstrom, we're going all the way to the far right side. We're converting it to Fizz because it's pretty, but also because we have a ton of stun chance. Stun chance synergizes well with Shock because Shock reduces the enemy's chance to avoid a stun or increases their chance to receive a stun. And it also works with large single hit damage if you're dealing like over a portion of the enemy's health in one being a single hit, which is exactly what we're doing with the lightning procs. So that's that. In Swarmblade form, we are getting a ton of crit. We can get, oh wait, one of my points is wrong. I had 10 crit before. I'll change that later. So we'd like to have plus 10 base crit from this node here, which brings us from 5, which is the base of every skill. So 5 plus 10 is 15. Summon Spriggan form gives us another 8, which is 23 base crit. And then we're using a Rune Dagger, which has another 4 base crit. So we have 27 base critical strike chance. So if we have maybe like 200 or so % increased crit, that brings us up to like, 75. It is relatively easy if you see the far, I guess my face is in the way. It's relatively easy to cap both your spell and your, let's click this button, click this button. Cap your spell and your melee critical strike chance so that you're always critting constantly on this character because you have so much base. So let's take another look at the skills. We are using Serpent Strike, so we're using that conversion node there. We have 2 points into proccing our Tornado. We have points down here into proccing Maelstrom. You can go 4 points, but I wanted to make sure my Rage was nice and capped up. So it's not a big deal between 3 and 4. You just want to make sure that your Maelstrom is actually giving you the Frenzy and Haste, however you end up speccing it. Then a bunch of extra armor and dodge, which is sweet. So Spriggan Form here, to me, it's not really interesting. It's basically how I use Spriggan Form every single time I use Spriggan Form, but it's giving us spell damage. We're a spell build. It's gives us a little bit of dodge per attunement, which is relevant because we are actually capping our dodge chance. I'll tell you about that in a second. Then it gives us base crit and crit avoidance, and then as much survivability for the Summon Spriggan as possible. Quick note about Summon Spriggan, it gains flat life off attunement. You can hold down Alt to see that. My Summon Spriggan was dying, and it was kind of annoying until I picked up 1 minion health modifier on 1 piece of gear. So just a little bit of minion health in 1 place was enough to make it to change it from annoying to comfy. So I recommend that. And the last thing, Serpent Strike. Serpent Strike is new. This is the 0.9 skill trade multiplayer. It's a little weird. I don't have too many things to spec into, but we have this lunge if you're slightly out of range. This works really well in human form. It's a little bit bugged in bug form, pun intended. We have 18% kill threshold, which is great. And then on the bottom side of the skill tree, we have more dodge rating if you've used this recently, which is sweet. A bunch of attack speed and some armor shred chance on Serpent Strike. So we are attacking super quickly like this. And then you can see if we look at the enemy over here, like this one here, we can stack up those armor shred pretty quickly. We can get our shock stacks. My shock chance a little bit low. You can see it only says like 8 or 9% there. But we cap out our lightning shred, and our armor shred gets up to about 80%, maybe a little bit higher than, or sorry, not 80%, 80 stacks of armor shred on single target when we're holding everything down. All right, so that's the skills, gear. Let's take a look at the build planner that Mythica shared with me of his live character. So it'll be slightly different than what's available on 0.9, because you also get access to things like AoE, if you're interested in that. AoE would increase the range at which the lightning can strike away from your character there. So you can get AoE on 0.9 on your amulet and on your gloves here. So the rest of this is plus levels wherever we can get. Plus levels to Tornado on our chest piece is great. Anywhere that we can get crit multi while transformed, spell damage while transformed. A lot of our idols say the same thing. Spell damage while transformed, crit multi while transformed, cold damage, lightning damage. Those kinds of things are exactly what we are looking for. Let's take a look at this. Lightning damage, crit multi, spell damage, tornado, and then rounding out is just like as much life as you can possibly get, and a little bit of crit chance to actually cap out your crit. The important note is we are dual wielding. I am an average Bastion of Honor appreciator. I like using Bastion whenever I can. Believe it or not, even as a hardcore gamer, I'm pretty okay with using dual wielding here. So dual wielding got buffed. Instead of taking 15% increased damage, you take 12% increased damage. You're still taking % increased damage, but it's better than it was in 0.8.5. Let's switch views here real quick. Hey, can you stop attacking real quick? Thank you. So the reason that it feels okay to dual wield here is in our mastery, we get to take advantage of, if we want to, every single piece of damage reduction that's available in the base class, the Beastmaster, and Druid. Remember, this node does not act the same as Endurance. It only benefits if you're below that threshold already, and then you continue to take another point of damage from there. So Endurance is better than this because Endurance is kind of like one-shot protection. I'm opting not to take this because that's a lot of damage reduction, and I don't feel like I need that. So what we do have is the points in the beginning of the Beastmaster skill tree. So minus 16% less, 60% less damage taken. We are a melee build, so not only do we get Aspect of the Boar when hit, but we get to buff it up, and we get to proc Aspect of the Boar on melee hits. So we get all the full effect of losing 21 points up to 25 points because it's kind of like a penalty because it's so good. Moving on. We come all the way up to the top of this for hide skin. We're going to put all 10 points in this. My character is level 87, so your character is going to be higher level than mine. But this is, instead of 20% life as extra endurance threshold, this raises it to 30% life as extra endurance threshold. So this is a super strong node. We are a melee build. We have tons of dodge. We're actually capping our dodge at 85% chance when we are fighting a single target monster because we have some flat dodge from our character and we have the more dodge rating from this node here. So between this and the flat dodge that we get from Summon Spriggan form and a tiny bit of flat dodge that we get from Maelstrom as well and getting those extra stacks of Maelstrom, we have flat, we have increases, we have more dodge, and we actually cap dodge without putting dodge anywhere on our gear. It's insane. So getting dodge along with impervious means that we pretty much have 20% less damage taken all the time. It's really, really strong. So between all of those sources of damage reduction, I actually don't mind dual wielding on this. So the rest of the Druid class here, I guess we have 5 points here to get access to Tornado for the penetration. But the rest of the Druid class is just some pretty generic stuff, a couple thresholds. So we have a bunch of endurance here, 5 points for elemental penetration. I wanted to make my rage as easy as possible, so I went 3 and 1 for no rage decay outside of combat. We have really good leech. We have 4% leech gain on crit, and we're crit capped. So this is always proccing and keeping us nice and healthy. We have 1 point here, 1 point here to give our minion more health so that she doesn't die. We have a couple points here into some additional flat damage. These points, I think, are kind of flexible. You can move these around if you wanted to. If you needed some crit avoidance per attunement, you could put 8 points down here as well, but I ended up not needing it, so I just swapped them over into Force of Nature instead. The important points are hide skin and impervious, like we talked about, and you need 8 points in this node here, which is not only the crit chance, but is also rage gain on crit. It's one of the reasons that this build feels so smooth to play. Cool. So that's skills, gear, kind of boring. Idols, you can have health and percent health. You can have resistances. You can go percent increased damage, like these things here we talked about when we were looking at the build planner on the website. But that's the gist of the build. I never really had a build as a Swarmblade that I liked and was also good. So when it comes to Swarmblade, I think the best things to be doing are probably like the Frostbite Tornado stuff down here. The Frostbite stuff is extraordinarily strong. Giga damage. Another great way of playing Swarmblade is to get some bleeds on the enemy, consume all those bleeds off the enemy with one big Swarm Strike, and then run through the rest of your map. It's a very fast way of leveling, and it has super high base damage. This is excellent. It's really strong. I don't like it. I don't like the mechanics of it, but it is very strong. So shout out to that. So those are like the builds that you could be playing as a Swarmblade. I think anything as a Locust. I don't really like the Locust. Like minions. I don't really like minions. Maybe you do, but don't tell me about it. But this build that I'm playing right here, this lightning proc based Swarmblade, where we're just like hitting the enemy. We're proccing all these things. It's like, it's crazy to me how mediocre my gear is, and it still feels so good. So show the cap dodge. Yeah, someone in Twitch chat wants to see the cap dodge. We'll hold down right click for a second or two. 83, 84. Do we hit 85? Come on, baby. All right, 20,000 dodge, 85%. Looks pretty good. I like it. So this is the build. Feels excellent. Apparently it works on the live 085 servers, but it's even better because all the more multipliers work on the 0.9 server. It's awesome. It makes me really happy that this build exists because I never liked playing Swarmblade, and now I do. So I've got maybe 9 hours left before the server goes down. I'll see you then.